Hi, everybody. It is Shay Anthony with Time to Shine. I am so excited to have my very first guest. Brian Carlson has just really blessed my husband and I in encouragement over the years. We've watched the journey of even when things get tough, he's still a dreamer, he's still a visionary. We have seen him put his hands to things that have just been phenomenal and beautiful. And we're so excited to just take this opportunity to share. I have found that multiple times the certain people have sparked my heart that I wanted to ask. And I end up asking them when they're in the midst of struggle. And I know that we all go through struggle, and I know it's always possible to ask somebody when they're in the midst of the thick of things. But so I just wanted to encourage you guys when I ask, yeah, it may be because you are struggling, and that doesn't mean we're not able to shine. Um, that is really when the Lord called me to shine the brightest, was when I was in the biggest mess. And so we just want to give an opportunity to talk tonight with Brian. We decided we wanted to talk about winning even when we fail, or perhaps even when we feel like we're failing. But as the Spirit moves, or as we're talking and chatting, if we get off track, that's okay too. So I just wanted to introduce Brian Carlson.
How
Hi,
are you?
Brian. Good.
Thanks.
Welcome to the show. Sorry, I was trying to do buttons.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it, Shay. Thank
Yeah,
you.
I appreciate you taking the time. I know you've been busy and you've been working through a lot of just the process of life right now. So I do thank you for the time for sharing and coming on. And so I guess I wanted to just talk about winning even when we fail. Um, what does that look like to you? What does it look like to be winning?
Okay. I think it's more of a I've always had like the glass is always full. Um, it's just been kind of like something that continually runs through my heart and my mind and stuff. And I'd have to say that I'm I'm just way probably too far of an optimist. Uh, it's maybe a dumb thing. It's maybe a faith thing. I'm not sure how the balance of it all works out. But yeah, just through life, I guess, just coming up as even a little kid, there's been like a lot of opportunities to explore stuff. Um, and whether it would be in the country with the farm, or whether it be um, in music, learning a new style or whatever. So there's always uh, this pull that I've had to be kind of exploring different things. So winning for me is more of, I guess, an attitude of just trying stuff, you know, and not being too concerned about. I mean, as I've gotten older, I've probably become more concerned about what people think, uh,
Yes.
unfortunately. But it's just like, I mean, the stakes can get kind of high, you know, when you've got, I have five children. I've got kind of starting over with my career.
Yeah.
Um, I'm building a salon out right now. It's about done, and so uh, just being in my mid 40s and having like very little experience, 8-10 hours a day, like doing hair, uh, serving the public face to face. I spent most of my life in terms of my career kind of like over a jewelry bench, building, welding things and designing jewelry. So uh,
I want to take a moment to talk about the jewelry because that's one of the things that did spark me. Your music, your jewelry, then the salon. Um, I think it's really important that a dreamer and a visionary will change Anybody, it's traditional for anybody to change their career in their lifetime 3 or 4 times. Anybody. That's not counting a dreamer or a visionary that is always getting sparked with something to create, right? So you did, when you were doing your music, you were sparking and creating and putting into my husband Dan with the drums. You know, you were his drum buddy, and you guys have fed into each other and sparked each other and encouraged each other. But when I first saw your crosses that you made at Jesus Northwest, Dan bought me one, or I think you just handed me one. And I remember looking at it for the first time, being sparked for art, and that we can create something. Because I've always been a reader and a bookworm, but to actually have something in my hand that was made for the first time, I think I was 16 years old, it dawned on me that something so fabulous can be made. And so I've held on to that. I mean, I still have that cross. And so, can you share a little bit about how that came about? Because you say that it kind of came about by accident. Can you share how you came about designing your jewelry?
I really was just trying to build a drum rack in school. In high school, I knew I couldn't build a drum rack out of wood, so I went toward the steel machine shop welding, and I learned how to do brazing. I learned how to do MIG welding. Brazing is when you've got the gases that you're working with, and you're melting. It's kind of a lost art. I don't know if it's an art, but it's like a lost form of welding where you're using a flux coated brass or copper or steel, and you're heating up the steel and fusing, making a weld, so to speak. And so I got into building the drum rack, got finished with that, and then I had a few extra, I guess, skills, with the braze welding. And the horseshoe nails were my folks, we had some chickens, and we went down to the co-op one day, and my mom was in there buying seed, not seed, but the chicken scratch, whatever. And I saw a box of horseshoe nails, and it reminded me of a cross that I'd seen hung in my brother's closet, my older brother Dan. And I was just like, man, I think I could make something out of those. So I asked the guy if I could have a few of the horseshoe nails. And so from there, I cut them up and laid them on a fire brick and started to braze weld them, and welded maybe 5 or 10 of them up, and then gave them away to friends. And that's just how it started,
Yeah. And I know that you had sold them the first year at Jesus Northwest is where I had gotten mine. But then you also have expanded on your designs, and you had success with it being in a TV show. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Gosh, that would have been quite a fast forward move in terms
Yeah.
of, but yeah, I mean, after Jesus Northwest, I'd worked at just walking into more Christian bookstores and trying to get new accounts with them. From there, I began to work on larger quantities. There was a moment in time where, in prayer, I just felt like the Lord wanted me to build as many as I could every day. Just take a step and build as much inventory as I could. So I remember getting up to about 250 units a day, where I could build about that many a day.
Wow.
And I went down to the hardware store and got a lot of dowel rods, and I'd made a big rack on the wall and started just putting all those on the wall, And it was kind of a neat time where I could see my progress. I could see, like, boom, today and I didn't tie all of them up, but I just had them in little like bins of 250.
And
And
did you feel like you were kind of like a machine going through it, or was your rear end dragging doing it? Did you kind of feel
oh
like that
no,
momentum going, or were you just kind of like, oh gosh, I got to go do this again?
it was kind of like I just treated it like a job. Like
Mm-hmm.
just, hey, I'm going to get down here at 8 o'clock in the morning. And a lot of times I would just turn on either some music or that's back when the VHS tapes,
Yep.
So I'd throw in some VHS, like either like a music video of some jazz players, playing, or some teaching tapes or something. And I would just work at it 8 or 10 hours a day. Um,
And see,
take
that
a break
sparked
for,
me. That's like, girl, you got to get to work.
yeah, it was not easy,
No, and to do these
building
things
that much.
a lot of times looking at, oh, it's art, oh, it's craft, oh, it's art, your own business. You think it's going to be easy and you can set your own time, but it's actually a push and a work, and you got to put the effort and energy into it.
Yeah, yeah. It went on and on for quite some time, and I just felt like you know, I felt like it was a part of being obedient to God. Here I
Yeah,
am making crosses, and I just felt like it was an obedience thing for me
yeah,
to do that. And so, uh, one of my dear friends that I'd grown up with in church reached out to me one day and just said, "Hey, would you be interested in doing this teen Bible thing where we put a cross with the teen Bible?" And he was working with the publisher at the time, and so I was like, "Well, I've got some inventory, so
wow.
let's explore it," and then it fell through, didn't work
Mhm.
out, and then like another month went by, and I'm still cranking them out, and then he calls me up again, and he says, "I think something's going to happen here. You mind if my company calls you?" So I took a call from, I can't remember, the VP of sales or whatever, and they're like, "Brian, what would you think about making 75,000 crosses for us?" And so at that time, my inventory was maybe, oh my gosh, maybe 5,000 units, not a
Mhm.
whole, not a whole
Right.
ton, but I'd kind of developed, I guess, that muscle, like this is how many I can make every day. This is the
Mhm.
max I can do in a 10-hour day. So then 2 weeks went by. I mean, I accepted the challenge, and then another couple weeks goes by, and they call me back and say, "Can you make another 60,000?" So that's when I knew that, I mean, obviously I needed to hire some people, and
Mhm. And you're still doing your jewelry. Is that still something you're doing on top of the salon, or are you wanting to phase out of that at some point?
still doing the jewelry. Yeah,
You
in fact, I
are.
just got an order today from a
Amazing.
bookstore, a Christian bookstore out in Louisiana. And
Awesome.
so,
So I want to take a break for just a minute, and I want to
okay,
share with those watching a commercial I did of your jewelry so they could see what we're
okay,
talking about.
okay.
So that is Brian's beautiful work as it has evolved over the years into just this really edgy, rustic um, attraction. So yeah, I just love
Thank you
it.
so
I love the
much.
new stuff. It's art, and so if y'all are looking on that replay, there you can go to his website and check it out. And you can also, I also have Brian's email information here. You can email Brian Carlson at info@brianwcarlson.com.
All right.
So that is the jewelry aspect. But I'm sorry, I did interrupt you. We were getting into how you got it into the hands of television.
Well, that's just a crazy story. It's just so weird how stuff works out. Okay, so hire a staff of 18 people. My wife and I were just like taking the bull by the horns, trying to figure everything out on the run, because we had a very tight timeline.
Yeah.
It's like we had, I think, 5, maybe 5 months to get all this inventory built. So we were making around 3,200 units a day. When we had our, when we had our third welder going, we were doing about 4,500 a day. It was crazy. So that went into a Max Lucado. It was a little gift package with Max Lucado book called The Gift for All People.
Wow.
And then a CD with a bunch of different artists on it. Really cool CD. So that really kind of gave us a shot in the arm. It was a really amazing experience. And then in contrast, things kind of just fell apart after that. I mean,
Okay.
we were entering into a nice like 5-year contract with them, and the orders just were not coming through from them. So I went back out on my own instead of working with their marketing team the way they wanted to go. I went back out on my own and just began to pitch my stuff to one bookstore after the next. And so what I did was, this is a little bit old school, but I just cold call. I do about 100 cold calls a day.
Yes.
My friend sent me out a copy of a program called Goldmine just to try out. And I loaded it in my little PC, and I put every contact in Goldmine. I made everything color coded. And I kid you not, I had like just stacked in around 100 calls every day. And then as I would move them further along in the process, I'd change the color of that contact to either like green or yellow or whatever. And so that was it was a really good, I guess, winning in terms of, I think I got up to about 450 store accounts during that time, just cultivating in that way.
And how did you push through the rejection? Because obviously you're going to be told no. And like, how did you push through and keep contacting? What was it that drove you to do that?
Well, it really, obviously it helped to have my wife's support. She was always telling me to keep going.
Yeah.
You got this, I mean, there was always those moments when the rejection hits you. I remember one time, just kind of recall a time when it was Promise Keepers, back when those guys were doing the big events in the arenas. And I remember contacting the lady and saying, I really want to work with you guys. I didn't know exactly how to like pitch myself, but I would just say, hey, I really want to work with you guys. And she kept saying no. And eventually, after about the 4th phone call, I said, I'm going to send you 500 crosses. So be on the lookout for them. So I sent her 500 crosses, and they sold out like in minutes. I mean, they just sold out really well at this one event. And then they began ordering from me on a regular basis. A real interesting thing happened when 9/11 hit. I went into the office. I heard the phone ringing in the office, and it was Promise Keepers. saying we're going to need some crosses,
Yeah.
you know. And so that was a period of history where I got pretty busy helping, helping
Yeah.
that effort, but okay, I'm going to get up to the thing with the necklaces that were out there on the screen a bit. But okay, so my wife and I moved from Oregon to Nashville. I had some music endeavors that I'd pursued for about 4 years before I met my wife, um, and so moved from Oregon to Nashville, and just began knocking on doors with music. Really felt like I would never make crosses again,
Yeah.
but I'd sensed during a period of time where I felt like the Lord released me to do it again.
Mm-hmm.
And so I began selling and went to a trade show, did really well at a CBA trade show. Uh, from there, kind of fast forward a little bit, ended up going to school to learn how to cut hair. And while I was in school, just to pay some bills, I was like, moving a little bit of inventory. And I'd made a few prototypes. Made a prototype for a band that didn't go anywhere. So I
Mm-hmm.
took the prototype down to a boutique in Nashville called Moda, and another couple prototypes, and sold them to them. While I was in school, I was just calling on a few accounts, and I called that boutique and I said, do you need anything? And she's like, well, have you seen the TV show Nashville? And I said, I've never heard of the show.
Mm-hmm.
So she said, I'm going to send you some pictures and your necklaces are on the show. So uh, that was kind of crazy. I mean, just seeing that kind of work its way, you know, onto the television set. But from there, I began to kind of explore, like going into uh, some galleries.
Mm-hmm.
Went into a men's boutique called The Label. Uh, Gary Allen was country music guy that opened that up, and they began to bring my stuff in, and I heard that some artists like Miranda Lambert bought the light bulb necklace, that she liked that. I'd heard that is it Georgia Florida line or something.
I never know.
um, anyway, there were just I kept hearing some names of people that were buying some of the stuff, and so there's
But
been
and
a
I think that's so relevant though, because a lot of times when you're on the outside and you see something happen for someone, because I know there was buzz even at home. Brian's stuff was on Nashville, and the boys are like, "Oh, it seems so easy when you're not the one going through the trenches. Like you weren't even working for that part of it. You were just doing your thing. You were doing your grind. You were working, putting the work in, and that was an outcome of it. But that's not what you were seeking, and it wasn't easy. It was, it wasn't like you just one day sent your light bulb to Miranda Lambert. It was work, in the process of the work, fruit came out of it. And so I think that's what's really relevant is even when you lost that one account for a moment, that you were really, that you were pushing all these out and you got an account and then it went backtrack. That was a fail, but you've learned and you kept pushing, and then all of the other opportunities kept coming. So I think it's just so important and relevant that you have to keep putting the work to it, and that is the winning in the midst of when failures happen.
you just never know when something's gonna happen. Or I mean, just I've been thinking about the subject quite a bit, like yesterday, and it's like, okay, so uh, life is a process, as you pointed out. When
Mhm.
you were sending me some correspondence about what we talk about, life is a process, and failing is a part of that. It's like, so you go into it, like, for instance, I'll tell you a little story about the day I went into this place called Garden Delights. really cool place where the owner had sold my jewelry through the years. But I went in there one day and was needing a sale. I mean, I was really like, I drove out there 20, 30 minutes to see if we could move some inventory. And that day he was just, I'm not buying anything, you know?
Yeah.
And he says, what I do want you to do is go to the Copper Fox in Leapers Fork. So I got in my van and I drove out to Copper Fox, and I met with the owner. I think it's coming up on maybe 10 years now. I met with, it could be 7 or 10 years, I forget, but went and met with the owner, and I was so blown away because it's like he was waiting for me.
Mhm.
Like, I really don't think that there was a call made on my behalf, but when I walked in there, he was just like, I sense the light coming, you know, when I see your jewelry, it brings light, you know,
Mhm.
I just sense it. And he says, I think I'm going to let go of one of my artists that is just super dark, you know.
Mhm.
And so,
Yeah.
and so I drove away from there like, man, did I just find a new home?
Yeah.
And I'd spent so many years. I mean, I'm talking like at this point in the game, it was like 20 some years. And I'm not putting these accounts down in any way, but there's like
Mhm.
certain markets, right? There's certain
Yeah.
markets where there's like that ceiling,
Mhm.
and you get beat up
Mhm.
on price point with certain
Yes.
people.
Yes.
And they're like, you know, we can't sell your stuff for more than 12 bucks a piece, you know, and you're like, oh my gosh, you know, and then you go into a gallery and they just want stuff for like 50 or 100 or 125.
Yes.
And so I had I had a real like quite a quite a drive home that day, just thinking about how in some ways I'd just come home.
Mhm.
And that's where I began to like knock on other doors. The label, which was, I mean, their jewelry was starting at 120
Yes.
and going up to, you know, $300, $400, $500. I mean,
Mhm.
some of it was in a sweet spot of maybe 75,
Right.
but and it was weird, like walking into the label and showing them some of the things that never, I never put them in Christian bookstores.
Mhm.
Um, but they're like, some of the staff would put it on and be like, "This is bad, you know, Apple,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, this is
Yeah.
like badass, you know." And I'm like, I never experienced that before.
Mhm.
Most of everything I'd done was like selling wholesale. You know, thank you for the
Yeah.
wholesale order. This is your discount,
Yes.
and I'll call you in 6 months. You know, so it's been kind of weird, you know, crossing over into that world, and
Yeah.
I've had some fun with that in some ways, you
Yes.
know.
Well, and
But
I just love your design, your eye. I know you've been working on the salon, and that is like your next season. And I remember a little bit of bits and pieces of conversation that you were just struggling with getting it done. It was in a very rough season. And I remember that it was to look now at it almost being complete just is amazing to see the push through and the accomplishment. And I know there's part of you that's like, well, I haven't had a lot of time behind the chair, but that is going to come. You know, that's part of the journey and the process and the learning. And you know, I have a friend that was a manager at a Great Clips, very successful in her career, and decided to go back to school at our age to do something else. She'll be on the show next week. But
hmm,
it's like we're never done. We're never done learning and evolving and growing. And a lot of times we do step completely back. I was a preschool teacher and I had to give that up and become something new. So it's almost like sometimes when we're older we get discouraged because we feel like, well, we're we're not 20 anymore. It's really, you know, we're starting off from scratch. But at the same time, we have the knowledge and the learning and the understanding and everything that we already went through. We're mature and we know more of a picture of what we want and what we're going after. And so rather than I'm just getting out of the gate, I'm trying to look at it as a new birth, like a butterfly, coming out of the cocoon, a new transformation and new beginnings that bring new life to us and to other people. So as people come into your salon, I believe that they're just going to be touched by the atmosphere. I can see you having your jewelry, there for people to see. I just think it's going to be a wonderful, wonderful transition, even though you're walking through it in the unsure, because it's such a beginning, it's such a newness. But when you look at what you've accomplished, even with your crosses, just what you started with and how it grew and how it developed and how it took you, that's exactly how it's going to be with your salon. You're going to be walking through the process, and it's going to be amazing. I know it's going to be amazing. So with that said, I want to share a little bit of the work that you've been doing on the salon so that people can see it. Are you in Nashville still?
Still in Nashville, yeah. It's
still in Nashville.
A unique little area over here by the Opryland Hotel. I mean, just right across the street is where it's so bigger than life over there. I mean, they start decorating the trees like in summertime for Christmas. It's crazy.
That's amazing.
All the detail that they. But I'm like in this little mid-90s strip mall behind it. It's got a real old, kind of a time warp sense, a feel to it. There's a dinner theater right just a few doors down, a dinner theater that you can watch, kind of like a Tammy Wynette type show, and then down at the opposite end there used to be like a cowboy church, and there's a big bus inside the building. It's real kind of touristy over here.
Yeah, that's amazing.
The space that I'm in now is about 1,400 square feet, and it used to be an axe throwing shop. So when we came in here, there were like marks in the ceiling where the axes had been hitting the ceiling and stuff. But it was it's pretty gross looking in here, like the glue on the floor when you pull the carpet up type stuff, and the walls were really not the greatest. But
you're like, what did I do?
It's been a really cool. It's like there's been the opportunity to kind of turn this place into whatever I want it to. The only thing the landlord didn't let me do is put in some skylights, but the light that comes in the front window is so bright, we wouldn't want any skylights in here. But it's been really cool to see it slowly evolve. I mean, it's been gone through some contractors. It's been quite an experience.
And you've done a lot of the work yourself by hand as well.
Well, the way it started was by thinking it was going to be kind of a small list of things to do, but it got bigger as we went.
Bigger and bigger. So. And it is amazing. And the eye that you have for the design is just awesome. So I'm going to share it real quick.
Wow.
I love it. so funny. Here we go. You're on. I'm going to share this with all my Tennessee friends. I actually have quite a few. So they can
I'm
check out
humbled.
my friend Brian. And yeah, I just think it's amazing. I see what you mean though. Like we got into our bathroom. I got this $15 vanity on a auction, win it to bid it type thing, and got it for $15 for our bathroom. And Dan pulled it out today and got stuff taped up. But while I'm in there, I'm like, it could use a new floor. It could use a new tile. Like, I mean, we can't do that right now, but your brain just starts like, oh, do I really want to put this, But so I could see how it just grows. And then I'm like, well, I need the fireplace done and I need the kitchen done. But it's all
Well, let me
process
tell you,
and
Dan is incredible. Oh my gosh, your husband's amazing. Great,
I
great
like him a
skilled
little
guy.
bit. He is. He's but I do know that he has the passion for drums and the music, and it's something that we've actually talked about starting him with a music corner show like this, where he would have you guys just chat about music, chat about drums, or have other musicians talk about their journey and what sparks them, So be on the lookout for that invite.
I love it. Wow.
So
Wow.
I just wanted to thank you for your time. I just wanted to share that your journey, even though it's hard, it's fruitful, and that it's just like it's fruitful, and you're winning even when you have had failures, because they're part teachable moments of being taught, moments of growth, what you wouldn't do again, what you would try again, and God is all about restoring, even when we feel like we've missed it big. He restores it, even if it's not what we look like. He brings about goodness for those that love him and are faithful to him. So I just wanted to thank you for your time.
Like,
And
I gotta say that, I mean, before we head out, with this salon and in regard to it, I mean, it's like I was heading in a totally different direction than opening this place up. And so, my dad came along and uh, showed some faith, He
yeah,
had more faith in me than I had. And so it really has been, pretty weird to be like moving along in some ways so slow.
yes,
And I have to say that, there have been moments where I've just been kind of paralyzed,
yeah,
and you've talked about winning when you fail, and there have been some really difficult things I've been going through lately, and I have to say that it's so important to have, I mean, to have like be planted in some kind of a fellowship.
hmm,
If I could just give some encouragement to somebody out there, I've had people check up on me. Uh, I went through COVID and double pneumonia in November.
yes, yes,
I felt like I went into urgent care 3 different times, and they were wanting me to go to the ER. Uh, and I just want, whoever's listening to know that, this stuff hasn't been really easy.
yes,
It's been a real test of, I guess, like endurance, and it's I've been lifted up in prayer by a lot of people.
yeah,
Um, I know that God has lifted me up through a lot of prayer.
yeah.
So,
Well, and
I
that's
just really I can't really take a lot of credit for, um, and I'm not trying to do like the false humility thing. It's just
no,
like,
no,
man, I mean, I just reached out to a friend about 3 nights ago, uh, just telling them, hey, I'm going through a rough patch
yeah,
and I feel really stupid. And, this is where I am. Can you please, just help me,
yeah,
And so, I don't know how much more time we got, but I just wanted to kind of share,
Well,
a
and
little bit of that with.
I love that though, because it really does remind me. I even mentioned it the other day. It reminds me of when a runner trips and falls and somebody passes them and realizes he tripped and fell and comes back and picks him up and walks them over the finish line. You know, you have that community, that brother that picks you up and walks you over the finish line when you've been broken and bruised and you just can't do it anymore. And even in your broken and bruised and hurting, that's what you're doing right now by lighting that spark and being real and sharing. Somebody else I know is hearing, going, oh, I can do this. I can, reach out to a brother when you're in the thick of it and you can't do it anymore. Or know that it's normal to be in the pit and injured in the process and that you can still arrive. That there's a lot of people that are hurt and injured in the process right now. I mean, isolation alone with COVID has injured so many people because we get comfortable in it and we just want to hang out in our own comfortable space and not do anymore. And so community is huge. And I do share the platform with people that are not even believers, because I believe that when there's a lot of people that have a spark and an encouragement and that have walked through it. But as a believer, there's something so valuable about others that will pray for you, lift you up and encourage you, and to know that that the Lord has a plan for you, even if it gets shuffled and even if it doesn't look like we think.
Mm-hmm.
He hasn't forgotten us in the midst of the bruised and scraped knees laying on the ground.
There was some time this morning where I was just listening to one of the things on my list to do every day is just to turn the music on in the salon. So I'd been listening to the Sunday service where I was enjoying some time playing drums on the worship team, and so I had a little bit of that going in the background. And I got up and started to do a few things, and then like 5-10 minutes goes by, and I literally I'm hearing the order of the service and Pastor Aaron praying over the whole church body, and here I am like hearing these words in my salon, and I really forgot those words. I mean, I forgot a lot, because after playing, you go and you grab a drink of water, you go to the restroom or whatever, and you
Dan does the same thing. I'm like, so what did they talk about? He's like,
take
oh,
a
I have to
break.
go watch it.
Yeah, and so here I am, like thinking a little bit about our discussion tonight and thinking, oh my gosh, how cool is it to play something like my church service? And I started hearing things from the pastor that I never heard Sunday. I just started to like connect with it and hear these words of life are resonating in and throughout my salon. And I just want to encourage anybody listening to, like, throughout your day, put on some music, put on somebody speaking or praying, or even if it's recording yourself praying something.
Yeah,
I mean, just
that's good.
put that on, because the Bible does say that life and death is in the power of the tongue, and it's like, what am I hearing every day? What am I listening to?
Yes.
And many times I've noticed it's just been quiet around here. It's just been very quiet. And so another thing that I felt really helps me kind of like with the noise of the day, in terms of all the things that try to get my attention,
Yes.
and sort of pull me off track, is one thing I do is I wrote down like all pretty much the important stuff I got to do every day, and then the important stuff I got to do like once a week. Filled up like 2 pieces of paper with all these different tasks. And then what I did was I took those things and I imposed them onto like a little bingo. It looks like just squares on a piece of paper. And every square has a task in it. And every time I get that task completed, I take like a colored pencil and kind of fill it in. I don't know what it is about coloring it in, but I can start to see like my page fill up with color throughout the
Mm,
day. And sometimes I'll camp out on a task for an hour. Sometimes I'll camp out on a task for like 5 minutes, you know. And some of the things are so simple, like joke, like learn a joke, you know. Some things are like really self-explanatory, like cold calls or follow up with customers, you know,
mm.
or make a deposit at the bank, you know. But that's something that helps me sort of like stay to where I feel like I'm winning every
Yes,
day in some ways.
I love that
Uh,
because I know a lot of
you know.
times I have my hand in the art and in the virtual assistant and then the show. And I find a lot of times that I get to where I move by what's sparking me at the moment and not necessarily commitment. And so I can go weeks without going in the art room, even though I have paintings due to be shown. Or I can go weeks without writing my months or years without writing my book, even though people keep asking me for it. And so I just love that idea of putting it down and coloring, because me with color, and and putting some small tasks in there with the bigger tasks so that I could see some accomplishment. I love that. I'm going to actually implement that because I can get so off track and so moved by what I feel like doing in the moment that I'm not
Hmm.
actually accomplishing what I have in my heart to accomplish as quick as I think I really could be doing. So I think that's a great idea.
Yeah. One of the ways to kind of take this a step further is to actually have a friend or a neighbor like sign off on things. I mean, if
Yeah,
you really want to get into it, you know.
yeah,
And I wanted to
accountability.
show just a little picture of what mine looks like
Awesome.
today.
Awesome. I
Um,
love it.
and so like right here, I've got turn the music on, joke, product knowledge, write a song, post to social media. This one's like check the bathroom, which means I've got a project I'm working on
Yeah.
to finish the drywall in there. Attend a class, so I'd go online and attend YouTube. You know, just do a YouTube class on cutting or color. Um, Drink water,
Yeah, that's
uh,
a big one. Oh
color
my gosh.
hair, open doors, close doors. So it's like I got to open the front door. You know,
Yeah.
research, clean, exercise, eat. Sometimes I forget to eat. Finance, thank yous, storage run. You know, and so as I move throughout the day, I can just that just keeps me on track.
I love it because it's actually you're solidifying it because as you write it down, that's one action, and then reading it, doing it, coloring it, you're solidifying those things. That's what a great idea. Yeah.
One cool thing happened today. I was like displays, like I need to build a display for my jewelry, and I went over to my materials, and I know I need to wrap this up, but I went over to my materials. I'm looking for some drywall and some corners and some 4x4, and I was thinking about using drywall to make my display, and the dimensions weren't quite working out to where I could hang necklaces on it. And then I paused for a minute and I just said, Holy Spirit, I ask you to please just like help me with this display. Like, I don't know what to do with it. I need to make one and I don't know what to do. And then it's like this light bulb just came right on and it was like bracelets.
Mm.
And the dimension that I really wanted to toy with was a smaller dimension. Wouldn't work with necklaces, but it would work perfectly for bracelets.
Yes.
And I just forgot all about bracelets, you know.
Mm.
And I've had a lot of requests for those.
Yes.
And so I would just say never underestimate like where your creativity can come from.
Mm-hmm.
Never underestimate it. I mean, I've been not always just in really weird spots or tough spots, but there was a time I remember I was building this big tree house for a client. There was a spot in time where I got into building tree houses. And I, for the life of me, could not figure out how to get the stairs from a certain part of the tree, which it's called the crotch of the tree, up into the treehouse area. And I just prayed. It's
Mm-hmm.
like, I cannot figure this out, Lord. I don't know what to do. And I kid you not, I was like, I packed my Bible, with me during the time when I was working on the treehouse. So I went, grabbed my Bible, I opened it up, and it talked about how, the one chord and the two chords and the three chords,
Mm-hmm.
and how the three chords cannot be broken. And I got a phone call, random phone call within minutes, of a guy that came over. He wanted to take a look at the treehouse. I'd met him at Starbucks randomly. He's like, "Hey, I'm in your area. I want to stop over and look at your treehouse." So he comes over, and I said, "I'm just scratching my head. I don't know how to get the stairs up into the treehouse. I can't figure out how to get them from here to there." And he just pointed out something so simple. And he's like, "Man, I got to get going. I'll see you later." And it was the answer I needed for, and in pride, we think we can just figure everything out, or watch a
Right.
YouTube video or Google it.
Right.
But man, there are moments I'm finding, like with parenting, or talking to clients, or how to set my prices, or what to call my salon, what the name should be. It's like you just can't really know without
Yeah.
some divine help. And so that's been my life off and on, with just asking and inquiring of the Lord, like, please help me.
Yeah.
I can't I can't really reason my way out of this. So
I remember there was a time I was working on something for a client, and I was spending three hours trying to figure it out, and it was coming like to a deadline. I was having to get there, and I am literally just sobbing and crying like, Lord, help me, because I knew it was something I should know, and I didn't, and I couldn't figure it out. And I don't remember what it is, and it was anymore. But then out of nowhere, my son calls me. 2 seconds, he fixes the problem. I spent 3 hours trying to fix, but it was all calm until it wasn't,
hmm
and I was a crying mess of a mess of a mess. And then my rescue came in, and
wow,
it was in that moment I wouldn't have received it before. It needed to be in
yeah,
that moment of surrender of I can't do this on my own. Pride, laying down the
hmm
pride and asking, didn't even know who to ask. And he's just like, Mom, I was making a video. I was making a video and it wasn't working. And I had a commercial to do and it wasn't working. And he walked me through it in 2 minutes. So it's like, so I've learned that my son has great skills that I can call upon. And
yeah,
and I also learned that when crying out, it took that long for me to cry out and beg God to help me. And then when I begged the
yeah.
Lord, please help me, I can't do this, my son called. So sometimes he lets us get to the
That's
end of
amazing.
ourselves. He didn't send the rescue in before. He waited until I was
Yeah,
the end of myself.
yeah.
Yeah.
Another thing that's been happening with me, I'm 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 trying to remind myself to do this, but just to ask God to surprise me.
Mm.
And that came through a day when I took my daughter out for lunch. Simply got in the van, and I'm so used to just saying, "Okay, sweetie, where you want to go to lunch?" And she said, she'd usually say, "Oh, I'm really feeling kind of like, some Taco Bell, or, I'm feeling like Sonic or something." But this day she got in the van and she just said, "Surprise me," you know? And so I immediately thought, man, have I ever asked God to surprise me?
That's
You
good.
know,
I know I haven't. I haven't.
I've
And what
never,
a delight you
I've
must
never
have
had that
in it.
kind of, and there's such a, I mean, there's just such a friendship in that kind of a request.
Yes.
Like there's a trust.
Yes.
Like, can you just surprise me? And I'm going to be really happy when you tell me where we're going. You
That's
know, like,
amazing. I love that. I love
you
that.
know.
Well, thank you. We're going to go ahead and wrap up. I want you to stick
All
around
right.
on the backstage when we're done so we could connect. But I just wanted to thank you so much for sharing. I was blessed greatly, and I know other people will be too. So thank you for shining your light, even when things are rough. We appreciate you.
Thank you, Shay. I really appreciate you. Thank you for having me.
Mm-hmm.